The Zero Reject Child Fine policy states that no student is allowed to be excluded from receiving a public education based off of a disability or even a communicable disease such as AIDS. If a student has extraordinary needs, it's actually the school district's job and they are obligated to find an appropriate way to educate them. The child fined portion states that a state is needed to, or at least has to be proactive in finding students that may need special education services, typically done through public service announcements or billboards. When it comes to non-discriminatory evaluation, students must be assessed using instruments that are not discriminatory towards their race, their culture, or their disability. For example, if there's a question relating to football, most Americans think of the football that's played during the Super Bowl, while in other cultures it might have to deal with a sport called soccer, so therefore it can be very confusing to the student. Also, when students are being evaluated for special education services, they must be assessed by a multidisciplinary team in their native language using tests that are valid for assessing the areas of concern such as math or reading or science. Also, eligibility cannot be decided based off of just one test alone.
The Individual with a Disability Education Act says that each child who has a disability and needs special education and related services will receive a free and appropriate education. This means all students will be educated at the public expense just like any other student, and there is no extra cost to you as the parent. Also, your child with a disability is entitled and must be provided with an education that is appropriate and meets her needs. This will all be tailored and planned by her individual education program, also known as her IEP. The least restrictive environment says that children who receive special education should learn and spend as much time as possible in a general classroom with students that do not receive special education. Your child should be with kids in a general education to the maximum extent that is appropriate for them. All students are different, and the removal of general education class should only happen if their disability is so severe that the services cannot provide him with a general education.
Another principle in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act is the due process. The due process is the steps or procedures that are taken to solve an issue. Issues like the student's educational placement or the eligibility in special education of a student, or issues with the services that the student is receiving. Until the issue is solved, no modifications can be taken to the student's education. Issues can be solved in school or sometimes in court. So again, the steps altogether the procedures that are taken to solve an issue is called the due process.
The principle that I'm going to go over is parent and student participation. This principle reinforces the belief that education of children with disabilities is made more effective by strengthening the role of parents in the special education process. IDEA requires that parents and students participate in each step of the special education process. Students must be invited to participate in IEP meetings where transition services are to be discussed. Parent involvement includes equal partnership in the decision-making process, the right to receive notice, the right to give consent for certain activities, such as evaluations, changes in placement, and release of information to others. The right to participate in all meetings concerning their child's special education is also one of the roles of a parent involvement.